It's 1955. In the Watson household, we're already preparing for my sister, Barbara, to join me at school, which is a predominantly black school. The name of the school is Wharton. There, the principal, Professor William E. Ross, happens to be my father's first cousin. And we're all excited, and that's pretty much all we've talked about is how I'll be able to look out for my sister, and she'll be joining me, and how we would, whether her going to first grade, I would be in the second grade. And then we got the news. My parents were informed by my father's cousin, Professor Ross, that things had changed. The law stated that Negroes would go to the closest school to their home and not out of the neighborhood. So that created turmoil in our household because we were a very close family. And while we were in shock, but we wouldn't be going to school together, we also were notified, or I should say my parents were notified, that there were going to be meetings at different churches. We were outreached by the NAACP and CORE and SNCC. So many people coming into our home to talk to the parents to prepare them for desegregation of Metro Nashville schools. And little did we know that was going to change our life and turn everything upside down. You see, in our neighborhood, it was predominantly black, but it wasn't all black. We had white friends that played in our backyard. We had mixed race people in the neighborhood. We all played together. We didn't know any difference. Nothing was ever said. But once it was stated that a black child was going to integrate in all-white school, everything changed. Our neighbors, white neighbors, were now told that they couldn't play in our backyard. And we couldn't go to their yard. And, of course, being children, we didn't really know what everybody was upset about. And I do know that we went to the different meetings, and they were telling us what to expect, how to protect the family. Now, my father worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So he didn't get to go to all of the meetings because of his work. And from there, it was just chaos. We started getting phone threats. We got so many phone threats, my father told us to stop answering the phone, that only he could answer the phone. And they would say some of everything to us on the phone. Well, as a child, I wasn't taught to hate, so I didn't understand why they didn't want my sister to go to that school. Now, my parents did not take me out of the current school I was at, Wharton, to go to Jones. I was to remain at my school. And my sister and my mom, well, my father, they all made a decision that he would continue to work, and then Mom would take Barbara Jean to the Jones School. And it was decided that they would walk from 12th Avenue North to 9th Avenue to Jones. I can't really relate to the experience that my sister had walking to school, but I know that things changed after the first day, because after that, we had people staying in our home at night with guns to protect us from the threats that we received. I was always pretty curious, and my sister and I had a bunk bed, and I stayed on the top. And I kept hearing a knock at the door, and I wanted to know, who is this coming after our bedtime? Because we had a bedtime. And I eased down the step to the upper bunk, and I went toward the living room door, which was closed. And I could smell coffee. Matter of fact, I was sharing that with my brother today. I could smell coffee, and my mother was preparing a lot of different sandwiches and everything to feed all these people that were staying in our homes at night. And I could see, I opened the door just a little bit just to peep in, and I could see all these men in the living room and guns. And so I did ask my mom, why are all these people? Why are all these people coming to our house at night? Of course, she really didn't explain the threat that we were under, but she would say, well, they're helping your daddy to keep us safe. That always stayed in my mind. Then they started sending the police to our home to take my sister to school, and she would ride in a police car. The first few times they would drop me off at Warden, and my mom and my sister would go on to Jones School. And then sometimes when their police car didn't pick her up or didn't transport her, there was a funeral home in our neighborhood that would transport my sister to school or pick her up. You know, our family is so close that we prayed at home. My parents weren't rich. As I said, my father was the only breadwinner, but they had a strong sense of what they wanted for each of their children. There was a total of 5 of us, but then just myself and my sister and my brother. I don't think he was born, or if he was born, he was a child then, baby. So my parents, I should say, sacrificed what monies that did come into the home to make sure that we had the correct or proper books to do our homework. And I feel proud of that, because for a while, we were the only family in the neighborhood that had a full set of encyclopedias. And I'll never forget that, because then, once the word got out in the neighborhood, neighbors started coming to our home to do their homework using the encyclopedia to help do their homework. Hardworking, they believed in the system, and they wanted more for each of us. At one time, there were so many things that I wanted to do. I said I wanted to go work for the FBI. I don't know why, but that was a thought. The other thing was I wanted to dance. I like dance, different forms of dance. But who would believe I ended up being a nurse? And I think I got that from my mom because my mom was not a formal, educated woman, but she did educate herself when she could. She did the Red Cross volunteer, and they had to take classes for that. And there was a Red Cross book where they had to learn basic blood pressures, how to take blood pressures.
Sorry, just one more thing. Just making sure we're talking in first person, so rather than me and my sister, me and you, Barbara.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what happened there. I got a frog in my throat. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I can grab a bucket too if at any point you decide you do want it. It's, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Uh-uh.
Oh, yeah, they're a little bit.
Okay, I'll just let it lay there. Okay.
You were talking about the Red Cross.
My mother's she would educate herself where she could, and she would dive right into it. So I do remember that green book, handbook, that it was a Red Cross for volunteers. So they had to learn how to, check blood pressures, how to apply dressings. There were so many basic things that they did. And so I guess that stuck in the back of my mind, and that's why I elected to go into nursing. But as the time went on and my sister Barbara was attending Jones School, I feel like there were some parts of her that changed. She didn't seem to be as outgoing and happy as prior to going to that experience at school. It was a little bit different. I can't say or even know what it is that she went through. But I will say that it did make a big impression on our home, in the home. I do remember we were outside playing in the backyard, and a car full of young white males came up the back alley. And they were, I remember it was a 1956 Ford. I don't remember the color, but I can still see the vision of those young men, and they were screaming all kind of racial epithets. Don't bring that black back to school. We're gonna hang her. She's not gonna live. Go back to Africa. And we're in the backyard in our safe place. And it was scary because we hadn't endured anything like that before. We start running back to the house, and they start throwing these bottles from the car, and the whole backyard just exploded in fire. Neighbors. Neighbors came from everywhere to try to put that fire out. somebody did call the fire department. By the time the fire department got there, neighbors had beat most of the fire out. And of course, they sprayed the backyard down. They never did catch those people. But I was only 8. And I will never forget that. I didn't know people could hate that much. Just because of the color of your skin. After that, everything, you were always, at least I was, always looking to see what was going to happen next. It wasn't, it was like 50 years, I believe. You see, once my sister went through the experience of desegregating, and she wasn't the only one doing that process. But Nashville did not say anything. For years, we didn't hear anything about the sacrifices of the families until 50 years later. And they had, it was documented in the newspaper, it's a big write-up, and there were several different programs. And my sister, Barbara, my mother, Mary, and myself, we went to one of the celebrations that was held at the American Baptist School of Seminary in their auditorium. And the place was pretty full. There were persons who were really up in age because they were young people when we were just babies starting school. And they were telling about their different experiences. So they asked the question if any of the parents or if anyone wanted to share something during that period for those that were in attendance. And my mother stood up and she told us about receiving phone calls and some of the vile things that people would say on the phone, and how my father told us not to answer the phone anymore. But while she was talking, she revealed, because she had never told us, that she recognized one of the voices on the other end. And that voice was a neighbor that lived just 2 doors down from us. The same neighbor whose daughter played in the backyard with us. My sister and I were shocked because she had never mentioned that. So after the program, we were going home, and I was like, Mom, you knew that all the time. Why didn't you say something? And she said, I wouldn't say anything because I knew if I said anything, your father would probably kill him. Because my dad was very protective of his family. He was our protector. Later, after my sister had been in school for a while, that neighbor wife was stricken with cancer. And my mom went right down to the house, knocked on their door, and she offered to care for his wife while she was dying. I'll never forget that. But it served as an example that no matter how much hate people exude toward you, you don't have to return it. When my mother passed and we were interviewed after she passed, I had so many of my coworkers to come to me and say, I never knew you. You never said anything. But you see, we weren't taught to hate. We were taught to do better. So as I told the interviewer, my father always said, remember who your people are, because my name means a lot to me. And I can't say that my mom was an angel, but she was pretty darn close. So Barbara, what do you remember?
Well, I was excited when I did the walkthrough through Warden School with Mom, thinking I'm going to Warden. Excited. Got to see the kids in the room and got to meet a bunch of the teachers, staff, and everything. And then when it finally came down to where I would be going, it was a shock to me because I really wanted to go to school with you. That was my plan. I'd get to walk with y'all and the group every morning. But unbeknownst to me, the laws were changed and things changed and everything. So I just had to roll with the program. But I was excited because up to that point of me going to school for the first day and knowing that the laws had changed and everything and our game plan had changed, then Mom was going door to door, house to house, talking to different parents and seeing if they would sign their children up to go to the nearest school, walk with us. And we didn't get any volunteers, not many. Anyway, anybody close to me. Only one person, and that was the Rucker family. And their son, Richard, was supposed to go, but he never did. And so I enjoyed going with her to talk to the parents because I get to play with the kids, you know, and stuff. So building up to the day of going to school, I remember my mother and Perry Wallace's mother, Miss Wallace, getting together, and they said, we got to get this girl ready. She's got to look good. Her hair's got to be this way. Her clothes have got to be this way. And my mother used to make my clothes. And she used to take in laundry and do laundry for people. She used to do the laundry for different people and stuff so she could make you look immaculate. Really immaculate. So the day was real sunny and everything, first day of school and everything. I'm excited and everything, but before then, my mother and father had sit me down and talked to me and stuff. And it's amazing because they never let on anything about fear or disruption that we were going to encounter or anything like that. Everything was positive. We're gonna walk, we're gonna do this, A, B, C, and D. And that's what, and I'm looking at them like, okay, it's gonna be great. We're gonna have a good time. Okay, I'm ready. Are you ready? And they'll make sure, are you ready? So and so, yeah, I'm ready. I want to go to school. So that day, that morning, I'll never forget it. My father talked to my sister and I, gave us a kiss and stuff, and then he told my mother he would be checking in with her. Okay, now the people from the NAACP, SNCC, and all those different organizations that had contacted my mother and father and stuff, they were reassuring her that someone would be going with you. And Harold Love Sr. was a council person at that time, and he was there on the spot. So that morning, a bunch of men came to the door and everything, and Miss Watson, are you ready? You ladies ready? So and so, yep, we're ready to go and stuff. Now we did walk initially the first day. First day we did walk, hand in hand. Me and my mother, we walked, and I had a white friend. Her name was Wanda. She lived on Orange Street. So as we walked down to Owens. Wanda walked with us and stuff. Her and her grandmother, because she stayed with her grandfather. So they walked with us and stuff like that. And my mother and her talked, going to school or whatever. And when we got to we got to almost, we were on 9th Avenue. I forget, Coffee. We got to Coffee, and it was a mass crowd up by the school and everything. People with signs, people shouting all kind of racial slurs and everything. My mother just held my hand, and she said, don't look to the left, to the right, just look straight ahead. We're going on. So we walked on. We got up by the school, and Miss Mills Paul, she was standing out front, and she welcomed us in and everything, and told us to come on in and stuff, and people were just screaming and hollering and all that. But it's like, I don't know why, but all that was just filtered out to me, because my goal was, I'm going to school today. Woo! A new experience, meet new people. Got inside, went to the auditorium, and one of my neighbors, Marvin, and well, he's a Williams now, but Marvin, he and his mother also all met in the auditorium. So we sit there and we watched, as everybody filtered in, and Miss Mills Paul came in and made everybody comfortable, calm. All that rhetoric and stuff was on the outside, and she was trying to make it pleasant, so we can get to congregate with each other and talk and get to know each other, So all that was good and stuff, and I'm still looking forward. And then I got to meet my first grade teacher, was Miss Summercamp. I'll never forget her. Miss Jean Summercamp, of all names. But anyway, that was her name. She was nice and she was sweet and everything. So the first day we went to school, went in the classroom, got to see the classroom and everything. And my classroom was, it was about 15 kids. We didn't have large settings or anything. And we got to meet and greet each other and everything. They told us what was expected of us. And a lot of us, of course, we took pads, big old fat pencils. Back then, that was it. Big pencils and big old writing tablets and stuff like that, crayons. And so, you know, we went ready to roll and stuff, but we didn't do anything that day. And then they tried to calm us down and let us know that we were safe in that environment where we were, and reassure everybody that they were safe, even though all that was going on outside and stuff. So by the time, and my mother stayed there the whole time with us because we didn't stay all day. I think because the black kids were coming in, I think that's why they didn't let us stay all day. But she stayed with us and sit, you know, and everything. And the parents that wanted to stay, they could stay, you know, with the kids and everything, get to know the teachers and everything. And they were laying out the format, you know, being conjugal and everything, you know. So that was, to me, was interesting. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, my mama's going to be with me every day. No, big surprise. She's not going to be with you every day. She can't even stay a half a day. So from day 1 to day 2 was a different day. Day 2 was the day that it was a shocker to me because I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to go out the door and stuff, and here comes this police car, and I'm like, okay, what's going down? Who's in trouble? You know, and stuff. And then I didn't ask too many questions and stuff, and the men came again and told my mother, you will not be walking today. And then they pulled her over to the side and let her know why. They didn't talk to me, you know, and stuff like that. So, of course, you know, nosy children, you gotta, well, Mama, what's going on? Nothing. We're going to be riding today. They're going to be taking us today. Okay. She didn't even let me know what had been said. Somebody had called in a bomb threat. And so she didn't allude to anything like that. She was still her normal, calm self and everything. So by the time we got to the school and everything, and we were escorted in, and she told me, she said, I'll be back, because I think we stayed a half a day. Okay, half a day. And she said, I'll be back when I'm supposed to come back and stuff like that. She said, you just have a good day and don't worry about nothing. She said, we just got a ride today. Okay. And I took it for granted. Okay, we just got a ride today. Okay, I'm back again with my new friends and stuff, and we'll just start off from here. So when my mother came back, she came back at noon, like she said, and everything. And I know the principal talked to her before she left and everything. And that was it. Of course, like I said, when adults were talking, kids weren't allowed to get into that. So they had their little talk. Barbara was in school. Barbara was all right, blah, blah, this and that. Okay, as we go along, the days go on, I'm noticing, okay, we're still being escorted, and we're still being, you know, carteled to me, to the school. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And now this is the principal. The principal came to me one day and she said, Barbara, how you doing? And I said, fine. And she said, you Justin okay? I'm fine, you know, and stuff like that. And she would talk to me on and off. And I was at rest period, and I was laying on the cart. All of a sudden, she woke me up. She said, Barbara, she said, come get up, fold your cart up, put all your stuff up, and come with me. And I'm like, oh, goodness, I was asleep. And she said, come on, get yourself together. So I got myself together, and we went to the office. And she said, I don't want to scare you. She said, and she told me this. My mother never said anything. She told me this. She said, I don't want to scare you. She said, but I'm going to have to send you home. And, you know, I'm like, why? And she said, somebody's made a threat against your life. And to keep you safe, we're going to have to send you home. We have a car that's going to come and get you. So Richard Smith was the black undertaker in our community at that time, and he would always send a car to come and get me if they called. So they called him, and he would come and get me, have someone to pick me up. And my mother didn't come and get me, but they let her know that I would be coming home. They were going to send me home. So I get home, and she's standing there waiting for me and stuff like that. And I told her that what was said and stuff, and she said, well, she said, I wasn't going to say anything. She said, but some people just don't like you being in that school. And I couldn't understand why my family was picked out among all the other families, because there were other black kids, but our family was singled out the most as far as with threats and everything. And I'm like, why are they picking on us? And we just want to go to school. I just want to go to school. And I couldn't understand that. That just played with my mind. I just couldn't understand it. And I'm saying, like, why is it always our family? So when I got back to school the next day, all my friends would ask and say, Barbara, where did you go? Did you get sick? Blah, 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 this and that. And I couldn't say anything. All I could say is, no, my mama came and got me early. And that was it. Because they asked the teacher, and they kept asking questions and stuff. And as a child, growing up in our family, you didn't speak out about a lot of stuff because you just didn't do that. That was not the rule of the day. And so I knew that I couldn't say anything too much because of what was going on, because I'm new to this. Had no idea what really was going on, and I'm new to this. But I noticed when my father came home and he sat me down and we'd talk every day that I went to school, and we'd talk about my day, what I learned, what I experienced, who was nice and who was naughty, and all that stuff. So, and he always let me know, he said, now you do realize that you are different. And I'm like, no, I'm not really. Yeah, you are different. And you do realize that some people don't want you to get an education. Not with them. And I'm like, no, I don't realize. He said, well, I want you to know. Some people don't feel like you should be educated with their children, even though you are children. And that you're not as important. You're not as important in getting educated. And I'm like I said, to me, why? I'm like, why? He said, that's just a mindset. That's just their mindset. He said, but I want you to know you're just as important, and you can go as far as you want to go, but don't let them determine your future, because you have a future. You have a future on this earth. Okay, don't let them determine your future, stuff like that. As a young child, you don't grasp all of that, the essence of all of that, because it's being told to you, and you're in a new environment, and friends are acting weird because, okay, we're in a school and we're together, and you're acting weird now, and we play together, and you don't act like that. But when you get around all these other kids and stuff, whatever they've been saying to you or their parents have been saying, now you're filtering into that, and it's a negative toward me. And now you don't want to walk with me, and you don't want to play with me, and you don't want to talk with me. What's up with that? I couldn't understand it. I couldn't grasp that. So I started, Wanda and I would walk to school together every day. And I noticed how some of the neighbors would get their dogs out, set their dogs out, and they would only sick them on me. They wouldn't sick them on Wanda. And Wanda would say, Barbara, don't run, and stuff. And I said, well, I'm not going to stay here and get bit, And she said, Barbara, don't run, don't run. And she would stand back and laugh, and I would just run on to school and leave her, and she'd be crying, you left me. And I'm like, well, the dog was sick on me. It wasn't sick on you. And I saw, after that, I saw that they made a difference between me and her, even though they know we walk together every day and stuff. But those little neighbors would come out in the morning, and their dogs just had to come out of that gate when me and Wanda would come across that threshold on that concrete walk. And I'm like, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of this and stuff. So I started walking with a Jew. His name was David, and a little girl named Donna. She was Jewish also. Didn't know that, but they told me about themselves, and we became friends. And it was one thing about them, I could go in their house. I wasn't supposed to go in their house, but when I went to their door, knocked, and the mother would always invite me in. She said, they're not ready yet, whatever, but you come on in. And I would stand in the living room by the door and stuff, and they'll be finishing their breakfast or whatever and stuff like that. And we would walk to school. And David and her, they taught me about diabetes. I didn't know anything about diabetes, but they were diabetics. And they had to eat a certain way and a certain diet. And then they had to take these shots. I didn't know about that, but I learned through them. So I started eating lunch with them. And the other kids wondered why I would sit with David and Donna. And because other kids, they just didn't take to them and stuff because they were different and stuff. And I would sit with them. We'd eat lunch. We'd talk. We'd share different stories and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, you taught me something I didn't know. He said, I have to eat a certain fruit. My sugar would go down, and he would say, look out for me, you know. And I said, okay. And then when we would go to the playground and stuff, he couldn't get too hot and all that stuff, and we play games and stuff, and he'd say, always look out for me now, Barbara, always look out for me. And I was always look out for him, you know. And we became good friends and stuff. And when his family moved away, I was kind of sad because that was my little buddy, David and Donna and stuff. And then I got into friendship with a little Indian girl when she first came to the school. And she was like me. They were making fun of her and everything. And I'm like, okay, why is she so different? Why are y'all making fun of her? And the boys would taunt her with, oh, she's one of them Cherokee girls and blah, blah, this. And she was a beautiful girl and everything. And nobody would play with her. So I would play with her. And then they got to talking about us both. You with that little black girl, and you know, so-and-so this and that. We don't play with monkeys and blah, blah. And I said, now, when did I become a monkey? I couldn't understand that. Okay. And then the area where we played, it was fenced in and everything. But then we started having parents come around to the fence, and they would be telling their children, don't play with that nigger. Don't play with that monkey, so-and-so this and that. And don't you let that nigga beat you playing ball. And don't you let them so-and-so beat you running when you get home, boy, and you know, and all that stuff. And I'm like, and so the teacher moved us from one side of the playground to where the parents could get to the fence. She moved us all the way over to the where the baseball field was and stuff. And she would sit up in a chair, and she would watch us and stuff. And she said, I can't let you all play over there anymore, you know. And when we had field day and stuff like that, the parents would come. And, of course, they would be saying different stuff, and they would have to put them off the grounds because they were drawing so much dissension between the races and who's winning what. You let that little nigger beat you, boy, you know. And I'm like, oh, why? What is going on and stuff? So the teachers had to move us in another direction to protect us and stuff. And I was wondering why they were like mother hens. I enjoyed my first and second grade teacher because you stayed with your teacher 2 years, and I enjoyed it because She was like a mother hen, and she knew the environment that you were in, and she knew what we had to deal with. And so she tried to keep peace and calm and tried to educate us all on loving one another, enjoying one another's company, but enhancing one another. And I love that because I'm a competitive person. I love competition. I loved it. And we'd have spelling bees and stuff like that. And I would love to get in our group and we get to talking and stuff. And I would say, oh, you don't know, you didn't study your homework. Well, you can't. No, we won't let you go first. No. And, we compete. And that just kept me going and going. I love competition and stuff. But when it comes to the name calling, I didn't like that and stuff. And I found out that our school used to have a spring program they did every year. And you had to audition for it. Of course, I was in the first and second grade. I couldn't audition for it. But I wanted to. So when I got to the age of the fourth and fifth grade, I wanted to audition, and they did away with the play. I couldn't understand. They did away with the program, that spring program. They just discontinued it. And I said, why? Is it because we were of age now that we could be, in that setting and stuff, and they just didn't want, I couldn't understand desegregation. I just couldn't understand why we had to be separated like that and why things were cut out before we got to the age where we could be a part of it and stuff. I did play in the band in the fifth grade and the sixth grade. I played in the band, which was great to me. I thought I was going to go to high school and play with the high school band and stuff like that. But the visit that we were supposed to have when we got sixth graders to go over and meet the band teacher and all of that, that tour got cut out. And I'm like, well, I'm not going over and play for them if they don't want to, introduce themselves to me and stuff. So I quit playing. I quit playing the clarinet. That was one thing that was cut out. But it's interesting how the minds of the people and the students that I grew up with changed once we got to the high school. Now, the high school was less than 100 yards from my house, but we weren't allowed on the grounds. We weren't allowed on the grounds. And the only times we got to go on the grounds was when school was out, and we would play on the basketball court or we would play in the football field. We got caught, they'd call the police on us or whatever, but we would watch the football games from the house. And I always stated that when I get to that school, homecoming time was a glorious time in the neighborhood, and the atmosphere and everything. I always said, when I get to that school, I'm going to be the homecoming queen. And when I got to that school, I got to be the homecoming queen. And nothing of my doing, my
Classmates.
Yeah, my classmates. I couldn't get it out. My classmates, they gave me that honor of being their queen. And it was a surprise to me. It was a surprise to my mother. She was shocked. And I think everybody in the neighborhood, they were proud because I had come from the first grade to the 12th grade of desegregation, through tears, through ridicule, through it all, and accomplished a goal that they didn't even know. But it was a dream or desire of mine to be their queen. And that happened, and everybody in the neighborhood, they were really proud and everything. White, black, indifferent, they were all proud. Why? because you did something that nobody else has done, and your family had went through, for you to sit on the throne of a school that didn't even want you in it, didn't even want you on the grounds, but you made it. So that was a great accomplishment. That was a great accomplishment.
That's an amazing story. But unfortunately, we're coming close to time.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure Diane got some questions in there.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna kind of keep it short, given that you guys have been so forthcoming with your story. It's amazing. I'm curious, how were there other Black students in your class with you, or were you one like?
No, Marvin was in my classroom, but they moved him to another classroom. And I don't know why they did that, why they didn't want us together and stuff. But there were other Black students in other classrooms, but we weren't together. You see what I'm saying? Some of them, I don't know what it was about the Watson family, but it just amazed me that so much attention was on our family and me. And I'm like, I couldn't get over that, because a lot of the kids that I didn't know that started out with me, they were in my high school classrooms. And when I found out that they were a part of the 17, and we got to be friends, we never talked about it. Desegregation was never discussed, never talked about. And not in the city, not in the state, not in the schools. And I feel like they didn't talk about it in the schools. They didn't acknowledge us in the schools because they didn't want to start up an uproar. You know what I'm saying? Because people get inquisitive, and then they want to ask more questions in depth and all that. And they didn't want the kids to know that part of history in depth and what we went through, because some of those families went through some terrible stuff.
Well, it sounds like it, and I'm curious. I'd love to have you guys kind of end on a note where you're maybe interacting. And so, is there anything that either of you have always wanted to ask your sister, to ask each other about these experiences, and if you could direct it at each other?
Is there something about the whole experience that you have not acknowledged, or perhaps wish that you could have changed?
A lot of stuff that I wished I could have changed was the experience that the Black schools had compared to the white school. I used to love to go to the spring festival at your school, because the males choir, the boys choir, and you all's choir,
It was a different
and it was
experience.
phenomenal, off the chain. And every year I look forward to going there, and I said, oh, I'm gonna sing too, But at the white school, everything that I wanted to be a part of as a young person, from 1 to 6, when I got of age to be a part of it, phased out. Ugliness. That's all I can say, ugliness. And I just couldn't understand and couldn't get over that. So when I got to high school, and everything that I thought I could do, I did it. From tennis, soccer, volleyball, whatever. And the difference was, at the Black schools, they didn't have all that.
Right, we didn't have.
But
tennis.
at the white school, they had all of that. That was more opportunities and more things to get into.
And what about you, Barbara? Do you have something you've always wanted to ask people?
Woo! And as far as how everything affected you, did you ever once want to even go to a white school?
No, I never wanted to go. The one thing that I wished that you did not have to experience, or I wished you could have experienced, was the camaraderie, the wherewithal of being a black person and being accepted for who you are, and that you, in your own right, have the right to not only be who you'd like to be, but you are talented. You have gifts that are inherently in you, and those things be brought out. And that's what Black School did for me. It brought out the best of each individual. We weren't taught that we were inferior. We were taught that we could do anything. And they expected excellence from each of us. But we had fun doing it. I don't have any resentment for going to an all-black school, because that experience, they loved us, and they were disciplined. They were disciplined. It wasn't an easy ride. But when you did something positive and you excelled in something, they were right there to push you on and applaud you. They were always made the proudness of you come forth. And that's what I remember most. When I was in school, especially elementary and high school, I had all black teachers. We had male and female, and they were proud people. And they expected nothing less but the best from each of us.
And that's what I
remember.
I missed that part. I missed that because I didn't have anybody that could identify with me.
Yeah.
And I always wanted that identity that I could go to, that knew what the experience of a black person was in a white setting.
Yeah.
But I never did have that until I got to high school. And I was so glad to see the black teachers, male and female. I didn't know what to do. And somebody that you could run to and talk to, and they could understand where you were coming from, not to judge you and put you into a category, but they could talk to you on your level and understand, because like you said, we weren't rich, but we had access to things that other families didn't have access to. And I never knew how important that was, because when I had a neighbor of ours, George, the Thomas family, when he told me, he said, I admire your family because, he said, when everybody else was asked to go, he said they were scared. He said, and for your family to put their lives of everybody on the line, he said, I admire you all. He said, because my dad, and he was a Tuskegee Airman, he said, and he was scared for us to go, and he put us in Catholic school. He said, so for your family to do what they did and to take that step of faith, not knowing if you were going to come home or if you were going to be kidnapped, he said, and that was during a time when when people were being hung and killed and stuff. And he said, I admire your family. He said, and I tell everybody to this day, if you don't know the Watson family, you don't know nobody. And when he told me that, it really hit home to me. And I said, you know what? I said, we really did step out in an unknown area, and we really had to walk by faith and not by sight.
Right.
And it had to take the grace of God and the mercy for him to cover us during that time, because
And he did.
I didn't realize the magnitude and how it affected some of the neighbors. And for him to tell me that and stuff, and it really hit home to me the other week when he told me that. He said, girl, you just don't know. He said, you just don't know how much your family means to this area. And that's all I know.
Do you have any last words for one another for doing this?
Thank you for
Thank
being
you
my
for-
partner, honey.
Thank you for being my partner.
Woo! Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna pause for if there's